The Metropolitan Museum of Art's annual Art for Education Gala transformed its grand hall into a glittering showcase of New York's elite. Crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over the city's most influential figures as they mingled beneath priceless paintings, champagne flutes in hand. Women in designer gowns adorned with heirloom jewels glided across marble floors while men in bespoke tuxedos exchanged business cards disguised as pleasantries. Victoria Harrington adjusted her emerald necklace, a family treasure that complemented her couture gown perfectly. Beside her, Stephanie Reynolds smoothed her black Valentino dress while Diana Montgomery beamed in her sapphire blue ensemble with diamond accents. New York's social elite in the flesh. The Education Center had better support something worthwhile this time, Victoria remarked, eyeing the room critically. Last year's beneficiaries were hardly from established backgrounds. As her friends nodded in agreement, a newcomer entered the grand hall. Olivia Chen stood in a simple navy blue dress, modest, unadorned, and painfully plain compared to the extravagance surrounding her. No statement jewelry, no designer clutch. Her black hair was styled in a practical bob, her makeup minimal and tasteful. "Who invited her?" Diana whispered, not bothering to lower her voice. "And in that dress. It looks like she's here for a job interview, not a $10,000 plate charity event." Olivia moved through the crowd with quiet confidence. At 35, she carried herself with natural grace that required no embellishment. She paused to study a detailed architectural rendering of the proposed education center, tonight's designated cause. Her eyes focused on details others overlooked. What none of these socialites knew was that Olivia had spent the morning touring an underfunded public school in the Bronx, learning the names of hopeful teenage artists and promising one shy girl with extraordinary talent that the new education center would have a dedicated scholarship program for students like her. A promise Olivia knew would be kept. "I don't believe we've met," came a cultured voice beside her. Victoria Harrington extended her hand, diamond bracelet catching the light. Victoria Harrington, Gala Committee Chair. Olivia turned, offering a genuine smile. "Olivia Chen. It's lovely to meet you." Victoria's smile remained fixed as her eyes assessed Olivia's attire, searching for a designer label, finding none. "And what brings you to our little gathering tonight? Are you with the museum staff?" "No," Olivia replied simply. "I'm just passionate about arts education." Stephanie and Diana drifted closer, circling like elegantly dressed sharks. "We don't often see new faces at these events," Stephanie commented, champagne flute poised delicately in manicured fingers. "The Metropolitan Gala is usually quite exclusive." Olivia nodded. The invitation mentioned the Education Outreach Program. "It's a cause close to my heart." Diana exchanged a quick glance with Victoria, eyebrows raised. "Well, every small contribution helps, I suppose. Though tonight's donors are mostly in the 6- and 7-figure range." "It adds up," Olivia agreed pleasantly. Victoria's eyes narrowed slightly. There was something about this plain woman's confidence that unsettled her. "Your dress," she began, voice dripping with false concern. "Is it vintage?" The question hung in the air, its true meaning transparent. Stephanie barely concealed a smirk behind her champagne glass. "Just simple," Olivia replied, unperturbed. "I find elaborate designs distracting." "How practical," Victoria replied, her tone making the words sound like an insult. "We must introduce you to Harrison Wells. He's our biggest donor from last year, $3 million for the European Art Wing. Harrison loves meeting everyday people." Olivia's eyes reflected a quiet wisdom. "I'd enjoy that." As they guided Olivia across the ballroom, Victoria subtly signaled to others in their circle, rolling her eyes when Olivia wasn't looking. Whispers followed in their wake. "Who brought the librarian? Is that dress from a department store? So plain. Poor thing, she clearly doesn't belong here." Professor Thomas Bennett, the museum's director of education, approached their group with a warm smile. "Ladies, wonderful to see you again." His eyes brightened upon seeing Olivia. "Ms. Chen, I didn't know you'd be here tonight." Victoria's perfect eyebrows arched in surprise. "You two know each other?" Before Olivia could respond, Professor Bennett continued enthusiastically. Ms. Chen visited our outreach program in the Bronx this morning. Spent hours with the students. Young Maria hasn't stopped talking about the scholarship program you discussed with her. Victoria's smile tightened. How charitable. But Professor, Ms. Chen was just about to join us in meeting Harrison Wells. Ah, Harrison's caught up with the mayor at the moment, Professor Bennett replied. Perhaps Ms. Chen could share her thoughts on the education center design while we wait. Her perspective might be valuable. Diana gave a silvery laugh. Thomas, darling, I'm sure Ms. Chen is more interested in the canapés than construction plans. This is rather technical, after all. Olivia remained silent, her expression betraying nothing. Actually, Professor Bennett replied, his tone cooling slightly, Ms. Chen asked some remarkably insightful questions about our curriculum development this morning. I'd value her input. Victoria smoothly intervened. Thomas, we shouldn't overwhelm our guest. These events can be intimidating for newcomers. She turned to Olivia with practiced condescension. The donors' circle operates quite differently from regular museum visitors. It's all rather complex. Across the room, the museum's executive director ascended the small stage. Ladies and gentlemen, we're just moments away from revealing our major donors for the new education center, Victoria whispered to her friends. This is where we shine, darlings. Olivia glanced toward the stage, then at her watch. If you'll excuse me, I need to step out for a moment. Of course, Victoria replied, barely concealing her relief. The restrooms are down the hall to the left, though I'm not sure they can do much to help with that dress. As Olivia walked away, Diana leaned in. My goodness, Victoria, wherever did they find her? She looks like she wandered in from a community college. The museum probably invited some everyday heroes for publicity photos, Victoria replied dismissively. You know how it is. They need to show diversity in their donor materials. The working class makes for touching brochure stories. Stephanie nodded smugly. Did you see her expression when you mentioned Harrison's 3 million? I thought her eyes would pop out of her head. The women laughed, crystal glasses tinkling like wind chimes as they clinked them together in solidarity, completely unaware of the tidal shift about to append their carefully ordered social hierarchy. Olivia slipped back into the grand hall just as Marcus Blackwell, the museum's executive director, tapped the microphone. The crowd quieted, jewelry glinting under the chandeliers as New York's elite turned their attention to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight marks a historic chapter for the Metropolitan Museum of Art, Blackwell began, his voice resonating with practiced gravitas. The new Education and Community Outreach Center will revolutionize how we connect art with underserved communities across our great city. Victoria and her circle positioned themselves prominently near the front, champagne flutes refreshed, expressions expectant. This was their moment, where donations were announced, names immortalized, and social pecking orders reinforced. Olivia stood quietly at the back, observing. Before we unveil our donor wall, Blackwell continued, I want to share something extraordinary. For the first time in our museum's 150-year history, we've received an anonymous donation that has left our entire board speechless. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Anonymous donations weren't uncommon, but the director's tone suggested something unprecedented. Victoria frowned slightly. Anonymous donors didn't fit neatly into her social calculations. They couldn't be ranked, impressed, or leveraged for future connections. This individual contributed $50 million specifically for our education center, Blackwell announced, with a single condition that the new scholarship program be called Maria's Artists, after a young student from the Bronx with extraordinary promise. Professor Bennett's eyes widened, his gaze immediately searching the room until it landed on Olivia. While we normally respect our anonymous donors' privacy, Blackwell continued, this particular benefactor has given us permission to acknowledge them tonight, as they are present in this very room. Victoria's group straightened imperceptibly, each woman mentally calculating if her family could have secretly made such a donation without her knowledge. Our extraordinary benefactor has a unique understanding of art's transformative power, Blackwell explained. 20 years ago, she herself was a scholarship student in our weekend program, the daughter of immigrants who cleaned office buildings at night so she could pursue her passion for art history by day. Today, she continues that legacy of transformation on behalf of others. The director looked across the ballroom. "Ms. Chen, would you please join me on stage?" The room fell silent, then erupted in confused whispers. Victoria's champagne glass froze halfway to her lips, her expression caught between disbelief and horror. "There must be another Chen here," Diana whispered frantically. But Olivia was already moving forward, her simple navy dress parting the sea of designer gowns like Moses at the Red Sea. The crowd watched in stunned silence as she ascended the steps to the stage with quiet dignity. "Ladies and gentlemen," Blackwell announced, his voice carrying over the whispers, "it is my honor to introduce Ms. Olivia Chen, founder of the Chen Global Innovation Group and our lead benefactor for the new Education and Community Outreach Center." Victoria's champagne glass nearly slipped from her fingers. Stephanie's mouth formed a perfect O of shock. Diana clutched her diamond pendant as if seeking reassurance from its solidity. "Ms. Chen's technology firm has revolutionized sustainable energy markets across Asia and Europe," Blackwell continued, "and her personal contribution of $50 million is the largest single donation in our museum's history." Olivia stepped forward to the microphone, her simple dress now seeming less a fashion faux pas and more a deliberate choice, a statement about values and priorities that made Victoria's designer gown suddenly feel ostentatious. "Thank you, Director Blackwell," Olivia began, her voice soft but unwavering. "When I was 13 years old, I spent every Saturday in this museum's education program while my parents worked cleaning offices. The teachers and artists here didn't just teach me about art, they showed me what possibility truly means." The room hung on her every word, social hierarchies momentarily forgotten as they glimpsed the depth behind her unassuming exterior. "Today I'm fortunate enough to be in a position to give back," Olivia continued. "The Chen Innovation Foundation was created with a singular mission: to ensure that every child, regardless of their family's financial circumstances, receives the same opportunities that transformed my life." Professor Bennett was beaming with undisguised pride. Across the room, Victoria and her friends had gone pale, their earlier mockery replaying in their minds with devastating clarity. "Maria's Artists will be a place of creativity and hope," Olivia explained, her eyes bright with purpose. "Because sometimes the most profound artistic visions come from those who see the world not from positions of privilege, but from perspectives of transformation and possibility." As Olivia stepped away from the microphone, the ballroom erupted in applause. Director Blackwell invited donors to view the architectural plans for the new center, and the crowd surged forward, many casting curious glances at the unassuming woman now revealed to be New York's most significant arts philanthropist. Victoria remained frozen in place, her world tilting on its axis. The woman she had dismissed, mocked, and patronized just minutes ago wasn't just wealthy. She was a legend in both business and philanthropic circles, with resources that dwarfed the Harrington family fortune. And Victoria had asked if her dress was vintage. As the crowd migrated toward the architectural display, Olivia found herself at the center of a swirling sea of attention. Board members who had barely glanced at her earlier now competed for her acknowledgement. Donors who had whispered behind their hands now beamed with manufactured familiarity. Through the pressing crowd, Olivia caught sight of Victoria and her friends huddled in urgent conversation, their glances toward her carrying a mixture of mortification and calculation, the latter troubling her more than the former. Professor Bennett appeared at Olivia's side, his kind eyes crinkling at the corners. "I wanted to see their faces when they realized," he admitted quietly. "Is that terrible of me?" Olivia's lips curved into a gentle smile. "I didn't do this for the reveal, Thomas, though I admit it does make a point." 50 million points, to be exact," he replied with a chuckle. Then, more seriously, "Maria hasn't stopped talking about meeting you. You've given her something precious, validation. Something to believe in." Olivia's expression softened at the mention of the young student. "Some promises matter more than others." Their conversation paused as Victoria approached, her designer heels clicking purposefully across the marble floor. Stephanie and Diana flanked her, their expressions schooled into practiced smiles that didn't reach their eyes. "Ms. Chen," Victoria began, her voice honey-sweet, "what an absolutely wonderful surprise. Had we known of your foundation's important work—" "But you didn't need to know," Olivia interrupted gently. That's rather the point, isn't it? Victoria faltered, her social armor developing its first visible crack. There appears to have been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Olivia replied, her tone kind but direct. You saw what you expected to see, a woman whose worth you measured by her clothing and connections rather than her character. Stephanie stepped forward, diamond earrings catching the light. We meant no offense. These events have certain expectations, standards. Yes, Olivia agreed. And tonight has certainly been illuminating about what those standards truly are. Diana, growing uncomfortable with the directness of the exchange, attempted to pivot. Your foundation sounds fascinating, Olivia. May I call you Olivia? Perhaps we could discuss your involvement in our annual fundraiser luncheon next month. The exposure would be beneficial. To whom? Olivia asked quietly. The question hung in the air, its implications unmistakable. Director Blackwell approached, breaking the tense moment. Ms. Chen, the mayor would like to personally thank you for your extraordinary contribution. Olivia nodded graciously. Of course. As she turned to follow the director, she paused, looking back at the three women. The Education Center opens in 8 months. When it does, I hope you'll visit, not for a ribbon-cutting photo, but to meet the students whose lives will be transformed. Their perspectives might surprise you. Left behind, Victoria's carefully constructed facade crumbled further. Did that just happen? She whispered to her friends. 50 million, Stephanie murmured, the number hanging between them like an indictment. And we treated her like she wandered in from the street. Diana's gaze followed Olivia's retreating figure. Who exactly is she, beyond the foundation? Victoria pulled out her phone, fingers trembling slightly as she typed. Her eyes widened as results populated her screen. The Chen technology fortune, she breathed. Her parents were immigrant janitors who cleaned office buildings. She built her company from nothing, started coding in a community college computer lab while working 3 jobs. Her sustainable energy platform revolutionized power grids across Southeast Asia. How much is she worth? Diana pressed. Victoria looked across the room. Olivia stood with the mayor and museum board, her simple navy dress now the most powerful statement in the room, not because of its design or cost, but because of the woman wearing it. A woman who had the means to outshine everyone yet chose understanding over ostentation, substance over spectacle. The evening's true beneficiaries weren't in this ballroom at all, but in classrooms across the city, their futures now brighter because someone who could have lived solely for herself had chosen instead to live for others. As the evening progressed, Olivia found herself momentarily alone, studying the rendering of Maria's Artist Scholarship Program. The design included innovative studio spaces and technology that would connect students with artists and educators across the globe. It's beautiful, came a voice. Victoria's, her tone now stripped of its earlier condescension. Olivia turned. It will be. Victoria hesitated, then spoke with unexpected sincerity. Why didn't you say something when we were? When I was? Would it have mattered? Olivia asked. Should it matter? Victoria fell silent, confronting questions that had never before penetrated her carefully constructed world. My worth, anyone's worth, isn't measured by their bank account or family name, Olivia continued gently. The students I visited this morning don't care about designer labels or social connections. They care about being seen for who they are, not what they have or how they look. I've never considered it that way, Victoria admitted, the honesty seeming to surprise even herself. Few of us do, until something forces us to, Olivia replied. She gestured toward the center's rendering. Every student who comes through these doors deserves to be treated with the same dignity and respect, regardless of their circumstances, just as every person in this room deserves the same, regardless of their dress or pedigree. Victoria's carefully applied makeup couldn't hide the flush creeping up her neck. I behaved abhorrently. Yes, Olivia agreed simply. The question is, what will you do with that realization? Before Victoria could respond, Director Blackwell called for attention. The room quieted as he prepared to unveil the donor wall. Names of contributors would be immortalized in order of their donations, with Olivia at the very top. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with profound gratitude that we recognize those whose generosity will make our new education and community outreach center possible. These names represent not just financial contributions but investments in our city's future. As the velvet covering was pulled away, gasps rippled through the crowd. Where Olivia Chen's name should have appeared at the top of the donor wall was instead a simple inscription. In honor of Maria and all young artists whose voices wait to be heard, your vision inspires our commitment. Director Blackwell looked toward Olivia, who gave a small nod. Ms. Chen has requested that her contribution remain anonymous on our permanent installation, he explained, his voice thick with emotion. She believes the true focus should remain on the students we serve. The ballroom fell silent as the implication of her choice sank in. Olivia had rejected the very recognition that most in this room coveted above all else. Her $50 million donation would forever be attributed not to her name, but to the students themselves. It was perhaps the most powerful statement she could have made, a rejection of the very hierarchy that had led Victoria and her friends to dismiss her in the first place. Victoria turned to Olivia, tears glistening in her eyes. For the first time that evening, perhaps for the first time in years, she spoke without calculation or pretense. "You've shown me something tonight I desperately needed to see," she whispered. "Thank you." Olivia's smile was genuine. We all need reminding sometimes that our true worth isn't in what we have, but in what we give. As conversations resumed around them, Olivia slipped quietly toward the exit. Her purpose for the evening had been accomplished. Not just the donation, but perhaps something equally valuable, a seed of transformation planted in unexpected soil. 8 months later, sunlight streamed through the windows of the newly opened Education and Community Outreach Center as Olivia guided a nervous teenage girl toward an easel in the central studio space. "Your brushstrokes are already distinctive, Maria," Olivia pointed out, gesturing to the painting taking shape. "You're developing your own visual language." Maria's delicate fingers adjusted her brush grip, her focus intense. "I still can't believe I get to study here," she whispered. "With real artists." "You are a real artist," Olivia replied firmly. The center had exceeded even Olivia's vision. State-of-the-art studios filled with light, classrooms equipped with technology connecting students to master classes around the world, and most importantly, a scholarship program ensuring that talent, not financial means, determined who had access to this world-class education. "Ms. Chen," called a staff member from the doorway, "the dedication ceremony begins in 20 minutes. Olivia nodded. "Ready for your big moment, artist?" Maria grinned, nervous excitement radiating from her. "Born ready," she replied, repeating the phrase her art teacher had taught her before her scholarship interview. As Olivia walked with Maria toward the center's main atrium, she felt a peculiar sense of fulfillment. Not from the building itself, impressive as it was with its innovative design and student-centered spaces, but from the lives it would transform. The atrium buzzed with activity. Museum staff, students and their families, media representatives, and major donors gathered for the official opening. Olivia spotted Professor Bennett speaking with the museum board near the podium. And there, arranging young art students into a small display group, was Victoria Harrington. Victoria looked up, catching Olivia's eye. Her smile was genuine as she crossed the room. "Maria, our star artist has arrived," she greeted, addressing the teenager with natural warmth and respect. Gone was the condescension that had once colored her interactions. In its place was authentic enthusiasm. Over the past 8 months, Victoria had undergone a transformation as remarkable as the building they stood in. What began as embarrassment had evolved into genuine self-reflection and, ultimately, action. She'd resigned from 3 social committees to devote her time to the museum's community programs, working directly with students from backgrounds she had previously only read about in charity brochures. "The students are so excited," Victoria told Olivia, rising to her feet. "They've been preparing their exhibition for weeks." Olivia nodded. "Their work is extraordinary. Picasso would approve." "It was your idea to have them curate the opening exhibit," Victoria reminded her. "You said their vision should be the first celebrated in this space." "You were right." Director Blackwell approached, program in hand. "We're ready to begin. Ms. Chen, would you and Maria take your places by the ribbon?" The ceremony unfolded with dignified simplicity. Speeches remained mercifully brief, focused on the students who would benefit rather than the adults who had contributed. When Maria and 7 other young artists cut the ribbon together, their faces radiant with importance, there wasn't a dry eye in the atrium. Afterward, as attendees toured the new facility, Olivia found herself alone with Victoria near the Maria's Artist Scholarship Wall, where student work was prominently displayed. "I owe you an apology," Victoria said, studying a particularly striking painting. Not just for that night, but for a lifetime of measuring people by the wrong metrics. Olivia shook her head. "You've apologized enough. Your actions these past months speak louder than any words could." Victoria smiled ruefully. "Stephanie and Diana think I've lost my mind, spending my afternoons mentoring Bronx teenagers instead of planning charity luncheons. Positively scandalous." "And what do you think?" Olivia asked. "I think I was asleep for most of my life," Victoria replied simply. "Making judgments based on appearances, collecting connections instead of creating meaning." She gestured toward the students exploring the new studios. "They've taught me more about authenticity than 30 years in New York society ever did." Olivia nodded. "They have a way of stripping life down to its essentials." "My husband doesn't quite understand," Victoria admitted. "He's supportive but confused by the new me. Yesterday he asked when I'd be rejoining the Museum Acquisition Committee." "And what did you tell him?" Victoria laughed. "That I'm too busy helping launch the museum's new after-school program." The look on his face was priceless. Their conversation paused as Maria rushed over to show them a new technique she just learned in the digital media studio. "What she doesn't know," Victoria said quietly after Maria had gone, "is that her mother works 3 jobs to keep their family housed. I've established a small foundation to help families like hers with living expenses while their children study here. The paperwork was finalized yesterday." Olivia's eyebrows rose in genuine surprise. "Victoria, that's wonderful." "It's a beginning," Victoria replied. "You showed me that wealth brings responsibility, not just privilege. I can't donate 50 million, but I can make a difference in my own way." Olivia smiled. "That's all any of us can do." As they watched Maria carefully guide younger students through the galleries, her face alight with purpose, Victoria spoke again, her voice reflective. "That night at the gala, it wasn't really about the money, was it? Your point, I mean." "No," Olivia acknowledged. "It was about seeing beyond surfaces, about recognizing that true worth isn't reflected in clothes or bank accounts or social standing." "I judged you by your dress," Victoria said quietly. "And now?" Olivia asked. Victoria's gaze shifted to Maria, then back to Olivia. "Now I try to see people as they are, not as they appear. It's harder than it sounds." "The most meaningful changes usually are," Olivia replied. A staff member approached, letting them know the student exhibition tour was beginning. As they walked back toward the galleries, Victoria paused. "Thank you," she said simply, "for the humbling I needed and for the opportunity to become someone better." Olivia squeezed her hand briefly. "We're all works in progress, Victoria. The masterpiece doesn't start out fully formed." Together, they joined the gathering in the sunlit gallery where young artists proudly guided visitors through their work. A collection of visions rising from those who understood, better than most, the true meaning of transformation. "We all make judgments based on appearances, don't we?" But as Victoria learned, looking beneath the surface reveals the true worth of those around us. The most valuable things in life have never been what we wear or own, but who we are and how we touch the lives of others. In art as in life, it's not the frame that matters, but the depth and meaning of what lies within.